Many movies have portrayed the mythological vampire and werewolves and have been a staple in cinemas, so it seems we never get tired of seeing new variations of these undead creatures. So, without further ado, Movie Spotlights presents a list of the top vampire and werewolf movies. Which is your favourite? I think it'll be pretty hard to guess with so many contenders, so stay tuned until the end to find out. And if you like this, check out our other video which we have on the best vampire versus werewolf movies.
I write all I know of it, and then I throw the pages to the wind.
At number 5, we have Byzantium. This fantasy drama vampire movie describes residents of a coastal town Hastings and learns with deadly consequences a secret shared by two mysterious women who seek refuge at a local resort. The deserted guest house Byzantium is owned by a lonely Noel, played by Daniel Mayer, and he meets a 200-year-old vampire schoolgirl Ella, played by Saoirse Ronan, and her sexy protective mother, Clara, played by Janet Ireson. Noel is broken and is grieving the recent loss of his mother, so Clara takes advantage of this with Byzantium, a former hotel and bed and breakfast that belonged to Noel's late mother. Clara sees her chance to make money with a brothel for her and Noel. As Ella falls in love with Frank, played by Caleb Laundrie Jones, who has leukemia and shares a lethal secret that they survive on human blood as she is tired of living on the run. As knowledge of the secret spreads, their past catches up with them as two strangers are tracking Clara through deaths of victims. The vampires in this film play by different rules as they don't have to worry about fatalities associated with sunlight, wooden stakes or garlic. The undead characters are able to walk around in daylight, similar to vampires in Twilight and other inventive twists on the usual vampire stories, as vampirism isn't transmitted through blood in this film. So we see that the only way for someone to turn into a vampire is to follow a map to a remote island and climb through subterranean tunnels to find the secret to immortality. So in that way, it's seen as a little bit of a prize, but make no mistake, there are no fangs on these vampires, and instead vampires grow razor-sharp pointy fingernails. In the number 4 spot, we have The Boys from County Hell, which puts an unusual twist on vampire movies as a comedy horror, similar to its English counterpart Shaun of the Dead, which is a comedy horror featuring zombies instead of vampires. This is a movie set in a sleepy Irish town of the 6 Mile Hill that is claimed to have travelled by the famed author Bram Stoker, the father of Dracula himself. As the bar is packed with local weirdos, they con gullible tourists wishing to pay a visit to the legendary tomb of the local vampire.
Fuck Dracula.
One night, the blood-sucking ancient Irish vampires is accidentally awoken as the construction of a new road disrupts the grave of Apartheid, played by Robert Narney. A crew of hardy workers, led by bickering father and son Eugenie and Francie Moffat, played by Jack Rowan and Nigel O'Neill, as the deadly and sinister forces terrorize the worker as they attack by an infected workmate and are forced to survive the night whilst exposing the true horror that resides the town's local myth as they slay the undead. This film features a primal vampire who's decaying and rotting underneath, not that handsome, and as the vampire nears its victims, crimson nectar begins to flow from noses and eye sockets and other bodily openings as blood rushes towards its master vampire, without any bites necessary or puncture of arteries.
Better weapons. How many of them things out there? One. But she's really pissed off.
This vampire horror at number 3, Stakeland, is set in an era when a pandemic of vampirism strikes across what is left of a nation with abandoned cities and towns. Any humans left find themselves on the run from ferocious feral beasts. It revolves around an orphan young man, Martin, whose family, slaughtered by feral vampires, is Connor Paolo, and is taken under the wing of an expert vampire hunter, Mista, played by Nick D'Amici. Overwhelmed as the vampire plague spreads across the US, the armed forces collapse. It is up to Mista and his rogue vampire hunter to get Martin to safety to Canada, the New Eden. Along their journey through the destroyed country, Mista trains Martin and they rescue and befriend other survivors and have to fight not only the vampires but also a dangerous brotherhood of fanatic religious monks led by the insane villainous Jabinia Loden, played by Michael Severus, who is a sadistic cult leader who poses a bigger threat than the film that's on. This vampire story does not end as you would expect. The design of vampires in this movie appear bat-like with pronounced foreheads and sunken noses, but are not zombies but behave with wolf-pack instinct. At number 1 we have Dracula Untold. In this dark movie, this illustrates a twist to the usual vampire being the protagonist of the movie.
You can't protect us. I'll find a way.
So
Here, Dracula is the older ego of Vlad, played by Luke
Sometimes
Evans.
the world
The story is set in the turn of the century, where young Lord Vlad and his family live in a peaceful life and rule over a small kingdom, Transylvania, when a Turk warlord threatens his kingdom, demanding 1,000 boys.
what it needs.
Sultan is preparing for battle. It requires 1,000 boys for his army, including your son.
And the young Prince Vlad must become a monster, feared by his own people, to create an army.
Because of what I did to save you!
To get the power needed to protect and defend his own kingdom at a terrible cost.
You are alive because you can fight!
Vlad tells his story to an inhumanely strong and fast humanoid creature.
Man of your strength to arrive.
I want the power to destroy my enemies and save my family.
What is it you are seeking?
Which turns out to be an ancient vampire trapped in the Broken Tooth Mountain caves. He offers Vlad some of his blood, infusing Vlad with the powers of a vampire, just temporarily for 3 days, and the ability to turn into a flock of bats. But there is a catch. Vlad will have to resist the urge to drink human blood, and only if he resists the temptation to drink human blood, he will be restored into human form.
What's happening to you?
I see the devil inside!
Otherwise, he will remain a vampire for eternity. The vampires in this movie are vulnerable to silver, which makes them weak. And the powers of a vampire give them super strength, speed, and vision, and of course are vulnerable to sunlight. And the ancient vampire will be freed. Be sure to check out this movie to see the surprising ending. If you enjoyed this video, why not check out part 1 for the best vampire vs. werewolf movies by clicking on the screen right now.